Issue of climate change is so dominant here at the Pan-African Parliament. Of course, with a message of solidarity is the UN resident coordinator here in South Africa. Nelson, thank you so much indeed for your time. You made it very clear that the time is running out. So as the continent, we need that unified voice in making sure that we tackle this existential crisis, which is, of course, climate change.
Definitely, and I think the sentiment expressed here is about the fact that we need to stop talking much about this and start acting robustly and advancing African solutions to deal with the problem which Africa is most impacted by, even though it is least responsible for. So the UN and partners are really looking at working with African stakeholders, starting with parliamentarians and of course civil society and the private sector to accompany the efforts that our governments are leading. It is now time to take robust action that will safeguard Africa's people and also its natural habitat.
And of course, everyone is looking forward to the COP28 in the United Arab Emirates, but prior to that, there will be this climate change summit for the continent in Nairobi. What can African leaders do in terms of making sure that we're able to get those coherent solutions that you're talking about?
Now, the quest for a common African position and African perspectives on climate change dates back all the way to prior climate talks. So we're looking at this upcoming climate conference in Nairobi as another avenue through which African solutions then can come together. As President Ruto, who will be hosting the summit, recently said, it is time for Africa not to be seen only as victims, but also as those who can bring solutions in the climate action arena. Solutions about just energy transition, the sort of interventions that will move Africa into a low carbon economy. And so we're looking at how innovative actions can be put on the table, African-led, African conceptualized, and African promoted.
And just before I let you go, Nelson, the issue of climate, financing, it's always a hot, topic, whether you're looking at adaptation, mitigation, but what can we do in terms of mobilizing the resources and get everything into action?
I mean, indigenous African knowledge to start with. We can start by working with those in our communities who have been living with climatic changes and variances over time. We can draw and tap into that knowledge. We also have African civil society. Pan-African Climate Justice, for example, that is a co-convener of this meeting, can also help with convening and advancing policy positions. Then, of course, we have African private sector and African technology leads that can also advance solutions that will make a difference. And we're ready to be able to accompany these efforts as the United Nations and our partners.
All right, Nelson, thank you so much indeed for your time. Of course, a UN resident coordinator here in South Africa, Nelson, really talking about the importance of making sure that Africa is able to get it right, getting that common position ahead of COP28. But of course, quite a number of speakers as well touching on a number of issues. We do know that Africa may be contributing least amount when it comes to the the gases, but their very impact is quite severe. So this is the Pan-African Parliament trying to be attuned to these challenges facing the continent. Khayelihle Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.